Welcome back to Catnap Recaps. Today, I'm bringing you an exceptionally gripping crime drama titled True Detective Season 1. In 1995, the body of a woman was discovered in a sugarcane field in Louisiana, USA. Detectives Marty and Rust were assigned to the case. At the crime scene, they were met with a horrifying sight: a naked woman with a black symbol painted on her back, lying dead beside a tree. On her head was a crown made of deer antlers and vines, as if arranged for some kind of ritual. Rust is a withdrawn man whose only daughter died young, leading to the collapse of his marriage. Because of this, he's seen as strange, cryptic in speech, detached, and with no family or friends. But as a detective, Rust has exceptional observational skills and razor-sharp deductive reasoning. By examining the scene in detail, he concludes the victim is Dora, a prostitute. The killer shows signs of severe psychological issues, acted intentionally, and likely has murdered before. His partner Marty doesn't take these deductions seriously, dismissing them as baseless theories. Rust avoids arguing and simply suggests that they should confirm the victim's identity first. Using information from an anti-prostitution group, they track down a bar known for soliciting sex work, but find no useful leads. Fortunately, fingerprint analysis quickly confirms that the victim was indeed a sex worker and tested positive for drugs. The coroner reports that Dora had been assaulted before her death, and the killer administered a special kind of drug to her. As for the antlers, the vine crown, and the symbols on her body, even the coroner has no explanation. Rust and Marty begin questioning Dora's former clients. In the town where she used to live, they learn that 5 years earlier, another girl had suddenly gone missing. Before disappearing, she reported to police that a devil-faced man was stalking her, but the case never met the criteria to be officially filed. At a church, Rust shows a priest the symbol and a branch woven into a net-like pattern. The priest says it resembles a devil trap, a tool used in certain religious traditions to capture evil spirits. This gives Rust a new line of thought. Following their instincts, Rust and Marty pursue the old missing girl case, hoping to uncover a connection to Dora's murder. At the missing girl's relative's home, Marty learns that her father abandoned the family and her mother remarried. The uncle, who adored his niece, was devastated by her disappearance. While Marty interviews the relatives, Rust walks around outside. Inside a small shed, he finds a crucial clue: a devil trap identical to the one found in the sugarcane field. This confirms Rust's suspicion: Dora's death is part of a pattern, and the killer has struck multiple times. Continuing their investigation, they learn that Dora's ex-husband is in prison. Before she died, Dora told someone over the phone that she wanted to become a nun and that she had met a king. Her mother says Dora often visited a church. Her friend confirms this, believing Dora may have been there shortly before she was killed. Putting the clues together, Rust forms a preliminary profile of the killer: someone who targets prostitutes and practices a twisted, ritualistic form of religion. The victim's pose wasn't random, it was arranged deliberately, but the true meaning behind the pose, or the origin of these symbols, remains a mystery. Rust and Marty quickly head to the area where local sex workers live. There, they find Dora's journal, but it's filled with chaotic, fragmented phrases like Carcosa, the Yellow King, and the King, offering no clear meaning. Inside the journal, however, they discover a pamphlet advertising a religious gathering, with the name of a church printed on it. Believing this might be the church everyone mentioned, they decide to investigate it the following Monday. Meanwhile, a special task force is formed at the request of Reverend Billy Tuttle. The Tuttle family is influential, with several members having served as state governors. Because Reverend Tuttle shows great interest in the case, the police department quickly assembles the task force, clearly planning to take the investigation away from Rust and Marty. Having the case snatched away infuriates Rust. His superiors already hold a grudge against him, and with no progress made, they're even more irritated. They call the two detectives in, scold them, and push them to hand the case over to the task force. Rust immediately objects, insisting that the church is their only lead and they cannot abandon it. Marty also speaks up, trying to defend their stance. After hesitating for a moment, their superior grants them 2 more weeks. If they still don't make progress by then, the case must be handed over. Realizing time is running out, the two detectives immediately head to the church address from the pamphlet. Near a riverbank, they discover a strange building with a large cross hanging at the entrance. It used to be a church, but the interior has been completely burned, leaving almost no clues. While Marty feels discouraged, Rust spots a formation of crows in the sky, mirroring the symbol on Dora's back. This suggests that her death is connected to some form of cult activity. After identifying the religious group that once operated there, they attend one of its outreach gatherings, but the pastor doesn't recognize Dora and offers no useful information. When Marty asks about the drawings and the fire, the pastor explains that the drawings were made by kids fooling around, and the cause of the fire is unknown. Some say it was a prank, but he believes the homeowner's son set the fire to drive the congregation away. He chose not to pursue the matter, and the church relocated afterward. Two church members tell Marty they once saw Dora speaking with a tall, muscular man with facial scars, and the two left together. After the interview, Rust suggests assigning officers to keep an eye on the church while they shift the investigation toward the scarred man. During the suspect search, Rust's insomnia works to his advantage. He spends sleepless nights combing through stacks of files until he finally finds something. 3 years earlier, a major flood occurred in the area. A young woman's body was recovered from the river, and the death was ruled a drowning, but Rust notices injuries on her neck, scratches on her abdomen, the same unusual drug in her system, and the identical symbol on her back, just like Dora. This convinces him it wasn't an accident. Rust and Marty rush to the drowned girl's home, but her grandfather provides no useful information. All he knows is that she once ran away with a man named Reggie. After digging into Reggie's past, Marty discovers he has a long criminal record, including rape and drug trafficking. More importantly, the drugs he dealt match the substance found in Dora and the drowned girl. Even more coincidentally, Reggie's former cellmate was Dora's ex-husband, but 8 months earlier, Reggie escaped during a temporary release program. Rust immediately requests a statewide warrant for Reggie and interrogates Dora's ex-husband, asking whether he hired someone to kill her. The man insists he knows nothing. He admits Reggie saw photos of Dora because he bragged about her in prison. He also describes Reggie's disturbing behavior in prison and suspects he belonged to a cult. Reggie had a spiral tattoo on his back and often muttered phrases like Carcosa and the Yellow King, the same words found in Dora's journal. This testimony clears Dora's ex-husband as a suspect. Marty continues searching for Reggie. From Reggie's former buyers, he learns Reggie still deals drugs but now supplies exclusively to a biker gang called the Iron Crusaders. Rust is already familiar with them. He spent 4 years undercover and had direct contact with the gang. He forms a plan: infiltrate the Iron Crusaders to get to Reggie. Marty worries Rust's undercover identity might be exposed, leading to deadly consequences, but Rust responds coldly, saying the worst that could happen is a bullet through the head. He then sneaks a bag of meth from the evidence locker and moves forward with his plan. Rust contacts Ginger, a member of the Iron Crusaders, claiming he has a lucrative deal and needs Ginger to introduce him to Reggie. Ginger tests Rust for a while, finds nothing suspicious, and sets a condition: Rust must help the gang steal drugs from a rival group. Rust agrees, but the operation collapses almost immediately, erupting into a chaotic shootout between the gangs. Amid the chaos, Rust grabs Ginger, forces him into a car, and escapes. Held at gunpoint, Ginger cooperates and leads Rust to Reggie's associates, but they don't trust Rust at all. After a few words, they turn away and leave. Rust and Marty have no choice but to follow them into a dense forest. On foot, Rust and Marty follow footprints into the woods, avoiding traps Reggie has set. Soon, they spot a familiar devil trap hanging under a dead tree, proof that Reggie's hideout is nearby. They quietly stake out the riverbank overlooking the meth lab and discuss their next move. Rust tells Marty to return to headquarters for backup while he stays to ambush the suspects, but Marty refuses to leave Rust alone in such a dangerous situation. They sneak inside. During a brief moment of distraction, Marty overpowers Reggie, drags him outside, and ties him up. Marty goes back in to search while Rust watches over Reggie. The suspect doesn't resist, he only mumbles words like Black Stars, Carcosa. Suddenly, Marty storms outside, overcome with rage. Without warning, he shoots Reggie dead. Reggie's accomplice flees in panic but steps on a landmine and is instantly killed. Rust is shocked by Marty's impulsiveness, but when they enter the dark room and find 2 frail children tied up, he understands why Marty snapped. Even so, Marty has now committed a crime that could bring serious charges. Rust quickly tells Marty to remove the handcuffs from Reggie's body, then grabs Reggie's rifle and fires shots around the area to stage a fake firefight. After that, he works with Marty to align their statements so the incident appears justifiable. In the meeting afterward, Rust and Marty reported that when they arrived at the scene and attempted to retreat for backup, Reggie spotted them and opened fire. He even detonated explosives in the woods. The detectives fought back and ultimately took down Reggie and his accomplice. While searching the hideout, they rescued 2 children. The case was then declared closed with the killer confirmed dead. Sadly, the boy did not survive, only the girl lived, bringing the investigation to an official end. Marty and Rust were hailed as heroes. Marty was promoted with a raise, and Rust received commendations as well. A few years passed peacefully. Thanks to his exceptional interrogation skills, Rust gained a reputation across law enforcement, becoming the genius every department wanted. But was the truth really that simple? Years after killing Reggie and solving the case, Rust interrogates a robbery suspect. With a few psychological tricks, the man confesses to murder. Cornered, he offers Rust a deal, claiming not only to know Rust, but also information about Dora's case, saying the real killer was never caught and is connected to powerful people. Rust assumes he's lying, but when the man repeats the words Yellow King and Carcosa, Rust freezes. He suddenly loses control and assaults the suspect. Officers rush in to stop the chaos. Those words trigger a chilling feeling. Years ago, every suspect mentioned the Yellow King and Carcosa. What exactly do they represent? No one has ever found an answer. Determined to uncover the truth, Rust tells Marty everything. On the way, Marty questions, if the killer is still free, why haven't new victims appeared? Rust suggests the killer may still be active, just more discreet. Rust also questions why the Special Task Force hurriedly seized the case years ago. Could the criminal's claim be true, that Dora's murder involved powerful figures? No one knows. Rust tries to get more information, but the suspect suddenly dies in prison. Surveillance shows that around 7 p.m., he left his cell to call his lawyer, and minutes later, he was dead. Rust doesn't believe it was an accident. He traces the phone call, only to learn the lawyer received it from the middle of an empty field, an implausible location. Rust decides to restart the entire investigation. He drives to the religious school where the drowned girl once studied. Along the road, Rust spots a billboard offering a $10,000 reward for finding Dora's killer, still standing after all these years. Marty had seen it back then too. The school had been destroyed by a tornado years earlier. 7 years ago, Rust visited it briefly, only asking a groundskeeper a few questions before rushing off to chase Reggie. This time, as he steps into the ruined building, he finds several devil traps abandoned in a dark classroom. Rust finally realizes that years ago, he had overlooked crucial clues. Rust wants to reopen the case, but many people, including Marty, oppose the idea, so he continues investigating alone. He visits the family of a missing boy. The father says the child disappeared in the lake, possibly dragged under by an alligator, but no one truly knows what happened. Rust learns nothing new from the father, but discovers the missing boy attended the same religious school as the drowned girl. That school was funded by the Tuttle family, specifically Reverend Billy Tuttle, who had shown unusual interest in Dora's case. Next, Rust visits the pastor from the burned-down church. Coincidentally, he too once worked under Billy Tuttle. The pastor explains that the Tuttle family funded a program building religious schools in rural areas to provide education and faith teachings to remote children. But in 1988, one of these schools was shut down due to allegations of child molestation. The news, however, was completely buried, so effectively that Rust had never even heard of it. When Rust asks why he left the Tuttle organization, the pastor hesitates, then reveals he once found disturbing photos of abused children in a senior clergy member's office. When he reported it, the leadership sided with the Tuttle family and retaliated against him. The school program was eventually shut down, and he severed all ties with the Tuttles. Rust's next stop is the girl rescued from Reggie years ago. She now suffers from severe psychological trauma and is hospitalized. She stares blankly at Rust, barely understanding him, but just as he turns to leave, she suddenly mentions a terrifying man with a scarred face. Moments later, she panics and screams uncontrollably. The incident earns Rust harsh criticism from his superiors. In his superior's office, Rust insists the killer is still at large and continues to commit crimes, only the information is being concealed. He points out that all related cases share one detail: they occurred around religious schools funded by the Tuttle family. His superior dismisses his theories as nonsense, rejects all of his claims, and threatens to suspend him if he keeps pursuing the matter. Rust refuses to back down. He confronts Billy Tuttle directly. Billy answers smoothly. Student records were kept in a basement that later flooded. The predatory pastor had been fired for embezzlement. He died in an accident shortly after. The school funding program ended simply because of budget issues. The visit enrages Rust's superiors, who suspend him for 1 month. Shortly afterward, Rust and Marty get into a fistfight outside the station. Rust quits the force that same day. Everyone assumes it was a clash of personalities, but only they know the real reason. They had worked together since 1995. Marty initially disliked Rust, but his wife Maggie always insisted he invite Rust over for dinner, so Marty reluctantly complied. Rust never liked getting close to anyone, but out of respect for Marty, he agreed to come over for dinner. The problem was he showed up already half drunk. Marty was furious but couldn't do anything except tell Rust to act sober, promising to find an excuse to send him home early. At the dinner table, Marty, Maggie, their 2 daughters, and Rust share a warm family meal. It's been a long time since Rust felt anything close to a family atmosphere. He ends up revealing that his young daughter died in a car accident, which later caused his marriage to fall apart. Meanwhile, Marty is desperately waiting for a chance to send Rust home. A coworker calls, giving Marty the perfect excuse to lie and say they need Rust for a case discussion. But after taking the call, Rust simply sits back down and continues eating. Marty glares at him, furious. Later, Marty asks Rust why he didn't leave. Rust honestly replies that having dinner with Marty's family wasn't as bad as he expected. Sometime later, Rust returns a lawnmower he borrowed and helps Maggie trim the yard. Despite it being only their second meeting, they get along well. Rust looks at Marty's daughters with a gentle, caring expression. Not long after, Marty comes home to find Rust and Maggie talking together. His expression darkens immediately. Maggie invites Rust to stay for dinner, but Marty refuses. As he walks Rust out, he warns him to stay away from his family. Maggie feels her marriage drifting apart. She blames Marty for being too consumed by work and neglecting the family, but seeing the stress he carries, she softens and consoles him. The truth is, Marty lives in constant contradiction. On the surface, he has a perfect family, high school sweethearts, a stable marriage, 2 adorable daughters, but he has been cheating for years. His mistress is young, attractive, and carefree. She even has other flings behind his back. When Marty finds out, he storms into her apartment and beats up her other lover in rage. Enraged, the mistress reveals Marty's affair to Maggie. As expected, Maggie kicks Marty out of the house. He begs and pleads, but she refuses to forgive him. But after the Dora case, perhaps seeing how much danger Marty constantly faces, or perhaps moved by his apologies, Maggie eventually softens and allows him to return home. Not only that, Maggie even introduces Rust to a doctor, hoping he can escape his lonely life. But over time, Rust breaks up with the doctor and returns to solitude. Meanwhile, Maggie's daughters grow older. The older daughter becomes rebellious, hanging out with delinquent teens. She's even arrested for adult activities with 2 boys in a parked car. Marty is furious. After picking her up from the station, he threatens to press charges against the boys. His daughter argues back, infuriating him even more, and he ends up slapping her hard. Their relationship shatters. One day, Marty stops by a store and unexpectedly runs into the young woman he once saved years ago. She has never forgotten him, and perhaps because he can't resist her beauty, or because he wants an escape from the chaos of his life, Marty once again falls back into an affair. Maggie quickly senses something is off and secretly checks Marty's phone. As expected, she finds provocative photos of another woman. Her heart turns cold, and this time she decides she will no longer endure it. Wanting to finalize the divorce and prevent Marty from clinging to her, Maggie makes a bold and reckless decision. She seduces Rust and sleeps with him. She then tells Marty everything. Enraged, Marty storms over to confront Rust and attacks him without a word. Rust dodges as much as he can but eventually fights back. Both end up bruised and bloodied while stunned officers watch in disbelief. It takes several officers to pull them apart. Their chief demands an explanation, but Marty says nothing. Rust, overwhelmed by everything, resigns. Marty and Maggie divorce. Rust disappears, and the 2 men lose all contact. 10 years pass. Suddenly, 5 new murders occur in Louisiana. 2 young detectives notice that Rust's name repeatedly surfaces around each crime scene. How could it be a coincidence when Rust seems to appear everywhere? The only explanation, in their eyes, is that Rust may be the killer. So they interrogate both Rust and Marty separately, about their lives, their work, and every detail connected to the case. Neither knows the other is being questioned nearby. As they recount the past, both instinctively hide the truth about Reggie's death and why they really stopped being partners. The detectives also discover Rust has rented a storage unit near the church headquarters, yet no one knows what's inside. They demand he open it. Rust refuses, saying he'll only cooperate if they bring a warrant. The young detective then unloads a series of accusations, calling the deer attack story fake, implying Rust shares traits with Reggie, and claiming Rust manipulated the old investigation for personal motives. Rust doesn't argue. He simply states that they're free to arrest or surveil him, but he will not open the storage unit. Then he calmly walks out. Meanwhile, Marty hears the detective's suspicions. They claim Rust may be behind the mysterious prison death years ago, and even the recent break-ins at the Tuttle residence. Hearing this, Marty packs up and leaves the station immediately. He says regardless of who Rust was then or now, he wants no part of this. But while driving away, Marty sees Rust's car tailing him. He finally pulls over. Rust steps out and walks toward him. 10 years have changed them both. Marty is heavier and balding, while Rust is unshaven, long-haired, and noticeably aged. The old case resurfaces, and Rust, the former detective who resigned years ago, is now under suspicion. Rust then brings Marty to the storage unit. Inside, Marty sees an entire room filled with evidence Rust has collected over the years. After resigning, Rust lived in Alaska as a fisherman. Only 2 years ago did he return to Louisiana, because he knew he had unfinished business. For the past 2 years, Rust has been working at a bar while secretly continuing his investigation, but after becoming a suspect himself and being questioned at the police station, he realizes the situation is urgent, so he seeks Marty out, hoping to convince him to join the case again. Marty wants nothing to do with old cases, but Rust reminds him this is unfinished business. If Marty hadn't impulsively killed Reggie back then, the truth might have come out years earlier. Marty falls silent. Seeing Marty hesitate, Rust continues, in recent years, every disappearance occurred near schools funded by the Tuttle family. Many witnesses mentioned a man with scars on his face, yet he's never been found, and Rust has even more evidence. The Tuttle family comes from a small town known for festivals involving deer antlers, animal masks, and devil traps, objects identical to those found in Dora's case. Through a student from the Light of the Way Academy, Rust learns that the girl who vanished in the first episode also mentioned a scarred man. Marty admits the evidence is compelling, but wonders why Rust doesn't give it all to the police to clear his name. Rust says he trusts no one. The Tuttle family's influence is massive. Years ago, the robber hinted about an important figure, likely one of the Tuttles. Seeing Marty still wavering, Rust drops a bombshell. He admits he broke into Billy Tuttle's home, not to commit a crime, but to find evidence, and he found plenty. Inside Tuttle's safe, Rust found photos and cassette tapes documenting cult rituals. Not long afterward, Billy Tuttle mysteriously died. Rust believes someone noticed the tapes missing and killed Billy Tuttle to cover it up. Marty is shocked by the tape's content. Motivated by justice, he agrees to form a detective team with Rust once more. Before restarting the investigation, Marty visits Maggie at her new home. They can finally talk peacefully again. Maggie tells him their older daughter has a nice boyfriend and held her own art exhibit, while the younger one is now a teacher. Marty is genuinely happy. Maggie senses he came to say goodbye before diving back into danger. Marty doesn't confirm it, he simply thanks her for everything and leaves. After Rust resigned, Marty stayed on the force for 4 more years, but eventually, fed up with constant exposure to crime, he quit and became a private investigator. His office now serves as their investigation headquarters. After organizing the files, they truly talk, for the first time in years. They ask about each other's lives, no longer adversaries. To gather intel, Marty visits his old colleague at the police station. With the help of a good bottle of liquor, he obtains files on numerous missing persons cases and learns about Reggie's cousin and an elderly woman who once worked in the Tuttle household. Reggie's cousin tells Marty that among Reggie's drinking buddies, there really was a man with scars on his face. From the elderly woman who once worked for the Tuttle family, Marty and Rust also learn his identity. He is the grandson of the Tuttle patriarch, belonging to the Childress branch of the family. They then use the missing girl's case as the key to uncover everything. They revisit information from Steve, the officer originally assigned to the case. Rust believes the investigation back then was sloppy and rushed, meaning Steve must know more than he admitted. Rust suggests using harsher methods to pressure Steve, but Marty refuses. He insists he's close with Steve and can get information over drinks, but reality is harsh. Steve says nothing and keeps his mouth shut. This only confirms Rust's suspicion. Marty changes the plan. He invites Steve fishing, lures him onto a boat, then he and Rust abduct him. They play the tapes for him. The disturbing images shock Steve. When Rust says the girl in the tape is likely the missing child, Steve panics and finally confesses everything. Years ago, Steve submitted a report about the missing girl to his superiors, but just as he began investigating, the sheriff, a member of the Childress family, shut him down. The sheriff claimed he knew the girl's parents and that she was with her father. As a lower-ranking officer, Steve could not object, especially since the mother was missing. He had no choice but to let it go. Not long after, the Childress sheriff recommended Steve for a position in the SID unit. His career skyrocketed, leaving him with no reason to pursue the case again. The missing girl's case quietly disappeared. Back at the office, Rust and Marty go through piles of records but find nothing on the sheriff's children or relatives. Just when the trail seems dead, Marty notices a photo in Dora's file, a house freshly painted blue. That detail sparks a memory for Rust. The missing girl once said she was attacked by a green-eared monster. Perhaps the killer was a house painter, and the fresh paint stained his hat, making her mistake it for ears. On the way to the blue house, they talk about the past. Marty says Maggie told him not to blame Rust. She was the one who initiated it, and Rust had been drunk. Rust simply replies that everyone makes choices, and whatever happened between him and Maggie is long over. From the homeowner's description, Rust and Marty confirm that the painter was the scarred man they've been searching for. The woman didn't know his name, but with tax records, Marty identifies him. The payment for painting the house went to a repair company owned by the Childress family. They search the company online and discover it handled numerous school painting contracts, many at locations matching the murder and disappearance sites. Following the trail, the son of the company's director, William, becomes their next target. Based on the evidence so far, he is highly likely the killer. The most urgent task now is to act. For safety, Rust creates multiple copies of the tape, case files, and witness statements. He gives them to the son of the bar owner, the boy who once went missing, telling him, if Rust doesn't make contact within 24 hours, he must give everything to federal investigators, newspapers, and national TV stations. Marty takes charge of contacting the young detective, explaining everything he and Rust have uncovered. The officer is skeptical at first, but Marty's sincerity convinces him to help. Marty and Rust drive through rough terrain to a remote forest. In the clearing stands a sturdy house. The moment Rust steps out, his instincts tell him this is the place they've been searching for. Marty tries calling the young detective but has no signal. He approaches the house, pretending to be lost and asking to borrow a phone. The woman who opens the door is extremely wary and refuses. Noticing her strange muttering, Marty senses something wrong and forces his way inside. Inside, the room is dark and filthy, filled with torn, eerie-looking dolls. Marty searches the house but finds nothing. The woman is now curled up in a corner, sobbing. Marty points a gun at her, demanding the location of the phone so he can contact the young detective. Marty leaves the house and rushes to a smaller building nearby. Inside, he is shocked. A man is tied hand and foot on a specially built bed, long dead. The killer is clearly very close. Marty has no time to examine the corpse. He runs out and calls for Rust. They split up immediately. When Marty goes back inside, Rust has already slipped out the back. Rust suddenly spots a man standing calmly in the forest, likely William. As Rust approaches and orders him to freeze, William bolts into the woods. Rust chases him into a maze-like area. William's voice echoes through the tunnels, low, chilling, luring Rust deeper. The maze twists endlessly, with grotesque tree roots lining the walls. Clothes and shoes litter the ground. The atmosphere is suffocating. William explains this place is Carcosa and he is the king. Reggie and the others were merely his loyal followers. Following the voice, Rust steps into an open chamber. Suddenly, a swirling vortex and stars appear before him. In that moment, Rust feels as if the missing girl's presence is still here, some eternal, haunting world. Rust momentarily loses focus, giving William the chance to lunge from the darkness and stab him with a sharp weapon. Only now does Rust see his face clearly. Shockingly, William is the same groundskeeper from the drowned girl's case years ago, but back then, his thick beard concealed his scars, and Rust failed to recognize him. With his life hanging by a thread, Rust has no choice but to fight back. He musters every ounce of strength and headbutts William repeatedly. Blood pours down William's face, and both men collapse to the ground. But William, stronger and larger, gets up quickly and prepares a killing blow. Fortunately, Marty arrives just in time and shoots William in the shoulder, saving Rust from death. Rust, however, is already badly wounded from the stab. Enraged, William turns his weapon toward Marty. Just as his axe is about to strike, another gunshot rings out. William finally meets the end he deserves. Moments later, police sirens echo throughout the forest. The young detective arrives with a full team, finds Marty and Rust injured, and rushes them to the hospital. After interrogation, the woman from the house reveals that the dead man in the shed was William's father, and she is William's half-sister. The two had an incestuous relationship. Police search the forest and surrounding areas, discovering extensive evidence of William's crimes, including bodies matching the DNA of long-missing victims. 2 murder weapons bearing William's fingerprints match wounds from the most recent murders, yet the prosecutor refuses to acknowledge any connection between William and the Tuttle family. After some time in treatment, Rust pulls through. Marty is discharged earlier but visits Rust frequently. One evening, Marty wheels Rust outside for some fresh air. Rust recounts, in detail, the vision he experienced inside the maze and the strange feeling it left him with. As he speaks, Rust breaks down in tears, struggling to get the words out. Hearing this, Marty no longer mocks him like before. Instead, he gently pats Rust's shoulder in empathy. Rust says maybe everything is just one grand story, a battle between light and darkness. Marty looks up at the sky and sighs, seems like the darkness is winning. Rust asks Marty to take him back inside. Marty knows there's nothing more to say, so he helps him up. Rust limps forward and quietly says he disagrees. Rust says that maybe in the past, the world was all darkness, but now, he feels the light is gaining ground. Under the night sky, the two walk side by side, moving forward together. The ending of the series is surprisingly warm and hopeful. Rust, once deeply pessimistic, now chooses to believe that light can overcome darkness. He and Marty officially stand as partners again. And that's the end of the story. Question of the day: do you enjoy detective crime series? If yes, comment 1. If not, comment 2. Thank you for watching our recap. See you in the next one.
After we confirmed